Our first speaker is going to kick off here is Des Traynor, co-founder and VP of Customer Success at Intercom, where he engages with customers on a regular basis and uses those customer insights to influence the product roadmap. He's here to talk us through product strategy in a growing company. With that, Des?
Thank you. Thank you. So yeah, as I said, I'm discussing product strategy in a growing company, and I'm Des Traynor. If you're on Twitter, that's how you'll find me, and a company's called Intercom, and that is how you find Intercom. This is going to be a very fast-paced talk. You will get the slides, there will be a recording, so I'll be moving comfortable than either of us are comfortable with. Or sorry, I'll be moving faster than either of us want to, but so be it. So we'll start with why. Why product strategy? Well, I've worked with I've founded a few and worked with maybe 100 startups at this point, and a lot of them have gone on to being mature companies. A lot of them have failed, as is the nature of the business, and a lot of it comes back to this. Most companies face this, and if you are an established company, you can replace the word product with the word feature, i.e. you ship a new feature, and guess what? No one uses it. And the standard approach to solving this is something like this. Well, we ask people who what features are missing such that they'll use it. We build the stuff that's missing, and guess what happens? No one uses the product. The key realization I've found over and over again is that asking people who don't use your product what you need to do to make them use your product is actually the wrong way to go about it. So good product management to me has 4 traits. Firstly, it starts with scalpels, not Swiss Army knives. Secondly, it's about saying no to any extra features until the scalpel is well defined and works. It's about focusing on the purpose of the product, not the people who use it or not the category. And that's slightly controversial, but we'll talk about that. And it's about finding ways to deliver magical experiences to users. So jumping into the scalpel point. The interesting thing about a scalpel is it's easy to market, it's easy to explain. It cuts open flesh, in case you didn't know. It's easy to adopt. It does one thing well, and it's very easy to tell if it works or not. If you try to cut somebody with a scalpel and it doesn't cut them, it's probably not a good tool. The opposite to a scalpel, in my opinion, is the Swiss Army knife. And the Swiss Army knife is hard to market, and it's hard to explain, and it's hard to adopt. It does nothing particularly well. For example, if you got into a knife fight and pulled out this, you wouldn't be in a good situation. If I asked you to cut down a tree in my garden and you came along with one of these, I would not be impressed. If somebody on a date asks you, do you have a toothpick, and you produce this, it's not a good thing. It also takes a really long time to build. And this ties in with a concept called Gall's Law from system design. And Gall's Law states that complex systems that work invariably have evolved from simple systems that work. A complex system cannot be designed from scratch. It never works, and it can't be made to work. You always have to start simple. So your first release of a feature or a product has to be a solution to a real problem that exists today. It should be easy to build, test, and refine, easy to explain to a business, and easy to adopt for companies of all sizes. One thing that falls out of that is that there's a difference between making a simple product and making a product simple. I'll say that again, it's not a typo. There's a difference between making a simple product and making a product simple. Making a simple product, you decide where it starts and where it stops, and your product captures a subset of a person's workflow. So if you're sitting in a situation like here, where you have a problem, I have to pay my team. And on the other side of the world, you have, I've paid my team. Your product has to do something that brings the user from A to B. And that something usually involves an entire workflow. They check the bank, review the projects, build the clients, check the timesheets, verify the rates, draft the pay slips, issue the transfers, and then tell the team they've been paid. And that's usually the workflow that you follow. So you need to pick a place, where do you start in that? Because the temptation for everyone is, let's build software that brings the user all the way through, right? But you want to start at the first step in a workflow where you can add new value for the user. Either you can make it faster than they currently do it, you can make it easier or cheaper, or you can let them do it in more places. And then when you pick your starting point, you work out how to transition from the previous step that they were on. And we'll give examples of this. So again, start where you can add value. And where do you stop? Well, you stop if you're about to bump into a large competitor that you have no intention of competing with. For example, if you're bumping into PayPal or IMDb or something like that, and it's not your core differentiator, you don't go and build an entire payment system, you just charge money. If the next step is completed in lots of different ways, so maybe your next step is, well, at this point they'd normally file a bug or they'd normally mark an issue as resolved. If all of your customers do that in hundreds of different ways, from say fog bugs to any other ticket tracker, all the way down to say more modern products like say Jira or whatever, if it's completed in loads of different ways, you have to build loads of different solutions if you adopt that pain point. Paying salaries is a classic example. So a lot of project management tools try to do something like where they estimate how salaries should be paid. Turns out salaries are paid 160 different ways in 160 different countries. That's a lot of code to write. And also, they already have a solution for it, so you're unlikely to do it way better. Or lastly, if it's something that you just simply can't innovate on. So if I ask somebody, well, what would they normally do now? Well, normally they'd pick up the phone and ring a customer. It does not mean, oh, we need to go and build VoIP technology. They already have a working solution. It's unlikely you're going to add more to it. If anything, you're just going to add a load of uncertainty. So what that looks like in practice is, if you have a workflow, something like this, where you're trying to work out how the hell people get paid, it's easy to sort of see this and think, well, this is it. We just need 25 different screens. So I can mock them all up. Our designer can go and build them all, and voila. It's not that easy. In practice, you should learn to see these things as actually different products. They're actually different products, and you should pick whichever product yours is. So maybe time tracking is about adding the clients, entering the errors, generating reports, and creating the invoices. And maybe that's it. And then when you have that, you have to work out, well, what happened before add clients? Well, how can we make this more seamless? So should we import clients from their other system, or should we integrate with Salesforce and pull in the clients from there? And similarly, on the far side, you can ask questions like, well, if we know the next step is to send invoices, how can we make that transition even easier? So this is how a product seamlessly fits into a workflow of a user. It's when you understand what happens either side of your product, and you play nicely with those tools. I call all of this roughly like the Scopylocks principle, which is no scope too big, because then no one will adopt it. No scope too small, because you'll be dismissed as a feature, not a product. Find a product that's just right, and that's what makes it adoptable. A small point about building these things is the temptation when you approach a product of any size is to go about building it in large, long, waterfall-ridden processes where at no point do you have any vision of what the end product looks like. So one way to build a wedding cake would be to build a big old cake base, and then separately have another team, or maybe later on in the process, you go off and mix up all this filling. And then lastly, a couple of weeks later, you work through all this icing. And the danger of that approach when you're thinking about like sort of your first release of a feature or a product is that at no point can you actually taste it. Maybe this thing tastes like shit for all we know, right? But when will we find out? Well, we'll find out on the day of the wedding. That's not the right time to find out. An alternative strategy here would be, let's build a cupcake that tests all of the principles of this system. You know, if you're struggling to build a cupcake because your oven doesn't work, that's a good time to find that out. If you realize that chocolate and caramel isn't quite as nice as you thought it was, that's a good time to find out. But it is, by the way. But if you get a good cupcake, then you say, right, well, how do we expand upon this to make a larger version of that? And then how do we expand upon that to eventually arrive at this wedding cake? That's just, it's a side note. It's the classic way for people to build new products or features is, in some sense, to follow along the top layer and concentrate on like all the architectural heavy lifting up front without ever realizing the immediate problems they're presenting themselves, such as we don't have an oven. So the second part of this was to make a product simple, you ruthlessly say no to anything that isn't your core. So Apple have this famous advert where they say that there are 1,000 no's behind every single yes that they release. And they claim that they throw away better products than most companies ship, which is obviously an easy claim to make because they never have to back that up unless you could go through the rubbish, you know. But there are thousands of reasons you'll be given to back up why you need to ship any given feature. One classic one you'll get, and I'll go through a few of these, is, but Des, this feature is going to increase our engagement. And you're like, okay, it sounds good. Except for you have to ask these testing questions. Will this increase engagement, or will this just move engagement around? And also, is all engagement necessarily good? So for example, I could add something like Tetris into a source control tool, and guess what? People will play Tetris. Does that mean we've increased engagement? You know, people are in it every day, many hours a day. It's not actually a result. So not all engagement is actually considered useful. It has to be engagement on the right things. But secondly, oftentimes people can fool themselves. For example, Diet Coke released Diet Coke with lime. And they thought, brilliant, this has been a success. We now have all these extra sales of Diet Coke with lime. And if you're the product manager of Diet Coke with lime, you can point to your sales chart. It's at a 45-degree angle. You're doing your job. You're looking for promotion. Somewhere in some other part of the building, the dude who's running Diet Coke is stressing about why the hell have our sales suddenly disappeared. And the CEO, who's most stressed by this, is saying, we're after buying all these limes, all these juicers, and we've done nothing, right? You can fork engagement, and it's not useful to your company. Oh, but this one's a really small feature. That's why we should do this one. Of course it is, right? Of course it's a small feature. Every feature is small in the developer's head or in the designer's head until you actually go around shipping it, and it's like, oh, we forgot that we have to update the iPhone app, the Android app, the API docs, the customer support requests, and then all our pricing pages. Oh, no. Not so small now, is it? Never mind the fact we've supported it forevermore. But also, just because something's small, it doesn't mean it's inherently a good idea. For example, I could leave here right now and go rob a bank. And if I was caught for robbing a bank, and my CEO was like, Des, you're kind of in jail now. Why'd you do that? And I'm like, oh, it only took me 5 minutes. Don't worry about it. You can do a lot of damage in this small period of time. Or another reason we should build a feature is because we can just make it optional. I know 4 people definitely want it, but we can make it an option for the other 9,800. Like, okay, grand. And then what you pay for there is you have this options screen, which is the guts of your product, effectively, where every single option that feature is optional on or optional off. You don't know how to market it anymore because it does everything, but at the same time it does nothing. There's a real danger whenever you agree that you're going to make something optional purely because you're honestly admitting that you're not willing to make that call just yet. There are definitely 50-50 cases where half our customers want to do X and half our customers want to do Y. But any small feature that you think is an easy one to add, don't do it for like 2% because all you're doing is adding complexity without any real benefit. Another classic one you'll hear is, well, we've nothing else to do. So this is the idea that you have this developer team and they don't have anything else planned right now. So they're like, hey, well, surely we can do what we want right now. This is the idea here is like the devil runs like UX workshops for idle hands, and he comes up with some really bad ideas for features. A better way to think about downtime, or a time when when we're still working out exactly what to do next, is that if anyone here has ever worked in a kitchen, they'll be familiar with this phrase: if you've time to lean, you've time to clean. So similarly, if you don't have an immediate next project, that does not mean go carte blanche on any old random idea you've produced. It means make the product faster, fix some bugs, do things that users actually value, not just speculative stuff because you're waiting. Another brilliant one here is our competitors have it. So what happens here is you're looking at your competitor and you're saying, well, they've got reports, features, distributions, alerts, and metrics. And you're thinking we need to build all these things really quickly because we're going to lose all our customers. At the same time, somewhere else in the world, they're listening to another Des trainer talk and they're saying, no one used that feature. This one's broken. That one never made sense. And they're trying to get rid of them at the same time. So you're literally on the roadmap to build yesterday's technology tomorrow, which is not a good place to be when you're chasing. And the thing is, if you don't say no, you'll end up as one of those products that people have to take all the crap out of just to make it usable. That's literally what happens. And you'll see this all over the place, where people literally are, their product is littered with so much junk that needs to be extracted just to make it broadly usable. Good questions to ask when you're faced with a new idea, a new feature, a new product are things like, does it fit within our vision? Is the reward greater than the effort? Does it benefit all our customers? Will it grow our business? Is it a forward step? Will this generate meaningful new engagement? And if it succeeds, can we support it? So another point is to focus on jobs, not personas and not categories. So people will try to categorize you. They'll tell you you're in such a category. You're in the internet category business or the payments business or the wireframes business. And Ryan Singer made a great point that outsourcing identifying what a category is outsourcing your strategy to the past. So all of these guys are in the social analytics category, for example. And what happens when a category emerges like this amid such chaos is it becomes a checklist war. Your whole product strategy is now defined as being do what everyone else is doing and then add one extra item to the checklist that only we have. And this happens all over the place. So this happened with photo apps, for example. After the Instagram acquisition, everyone was like, oh my God, obviously photos plus filters are the route to $1 million. So they all just go insanely at it. Over 1,008 photo apps have been VC backed. Over $1 billion has been invested in this category, right? How many exits have actually happened? 8, right? That's the nature of category thinking. You can see similar things with, say, the to-do category, where like everyone has this really original icon choice, but they're all just chasing each other's tails, running around in circles, trying to copy each other, trying to be like, we're the to-do list, but we also have like social sharing or something, you know. Similarly, people will tell you to focus on a certain type of customer. So our target customer is an executive, it's a CIO, it's a designer. They'll give you all these demographics and psychographics and behavioral traits. They'll even come up with these like mission statements. Our target customer is young professional. And the point I'll make is you have to be careful not to confuse things that correlate with people who use your product from things that cause people to use your product. Cause is way more interesting. Wherever I see firemen, I see fires. Therefore, firemen cause fires, right? And in fact, the more firemen I see, the bigger the fire. So it's definitely those guys that are up to it, right? That's the confusion you make when you confuse causation and correlation. If we take that example of the young professional and we say that they're hungry, well, should they have a steak or should they have an Indian dish or should they have a salad or should they have a burger? Who knows, right? Because product design isn't about matching people, it's about matching problems. The more you know about the problem, the more you can deliver something that will match. So if I told you, right, which of those four is the right choice, there's no answer. What if I give you some information about the problem? What if we say, I'm hungry and I want something to eat and I'm in a rush, I'm starving? Well, but then we can start to cut out things like Michelin star restaurants, and if you're starving, we can probably cut out that salad bowl. And you know, if you wanted to eat with one hand on the go, well, that rules out a whole other type of food as well. The more you know about the problem, the more you know about the solution. And all of a sudden, the answer pops out. And the thing is, this has nothing to do with the persona or the person. This has got to do with the problem. And this problem exists, the idea of being really hungry and needing to eat really quickly. You know, Barack Obama eats pizza. In fact, so does J-Lo, Hillary Clinton, you know, Ryan Gosling, Beyonce, Madonna, Ellen DeGeneres. People eat pizza. Everyone has this problem. It's a frequent thing. The people who have the job is always bigger than the people you think are in your market. The market for the job is much bigger than what you believe it is when you limit it to certain demographics or psychographics. Therefore, the job is what you analyze. I'll give you a really quick example from Intercom. We built this tool which maps out where all your users are. And we thought it was a map. We thought we'd built a map. That's what we call it internally. We say this is a map. But then when we look at how people use it, well, they use it when they want to impress people at a trade show, or if they want to impress investors, or if they want to impress people on Twitter. That's actually when it's used, right? If we think it's a map, we focus on things like geographical accuracy, precise filtering, clustering of segments, accurate scales and distances. But when we know why people use it, what the job is, we build a more beautiful map, or an animated map, or a full screen version of the map. And what we realize is a worse map does a better job. The point being, it's not a map at all. We just need to nail the job people are hiring it for. The customer rarely buys what the company thinks it's selling. Lastly, look for areas to be magical. Any sufficiently advanced technology is, of course, indistinguishable from magic. The old magic in our world used to be things like, it's cloud-based, now no one cares. It's mobile, now no one cares. You don't have to install it. These are all table stakes. This is just bare minimum, cost of entry. The new magic I'm seeing is, one, the Uberification of interaction. Uberification is a phrase coined by David Sachs. It's the slimming down of app interfaces into push-button experiences that do one thing. So this is what Uber would look like in our old world, Uber or any of those get me a car apps. There'd be a whole form to fill in. This is what Uber looks like in the new world. Okay? That's the change. And we see this trend. Pushing a button today can get you a date, it can get you a car, it can get you a film, it can get you a restaurant, it can get you a hotel. It can go further. It can get you a job, it can get you a roommate, and it can get you a dog. This is your life, and you're living it one tap at a time. That's the modern day trend. Your design's only complete when you reduce frequently recurring problems to swipes, taps, or clicks. Secondly, automated inputs. The old magic used to be you could fill in all these forms, and then Web 2.0 apps would show the information back to you. Maybe they'd visualize it. The new magic is you authorize access to the information. So TripIt, you connect your Gmail, and now it knows everywhere you're going because it goes through all your receipts. Baremetrics, you connect it to your Stripe account, and it knows everything about your business, and it gives you all these metrics once, and that's it. Intercom, you install it once, and you'll forevermore know everything about your customers. And lastly, ambient insight. This is the last piece of magic. Living next to a library does not make you smart. I know that because I had a friend who lived next to an library and he was thick as rocks. The old magic had you going out to get your reports and insights, log into this tool, log into that tool, and you'd pull it all together. The new magic sense, the insights come to you. Every day, Intercom customers get a mail about who their customers are, who's signed up, who's slipping away, who's just quit, who's just signed up, etc. Every day, Mention sends emails about who's talking about your company online. Gauge sends information about what was yesterday's traffic like. Bring the insight to your customers. That's the new magic. So that's literally everything I came to talk about product strategy. I have 4 seconds left. If you want to follow up with me in any way, shape, or form, you'll find the slides here at the bottom. Just drop me an email. Other than that, those links are there. I hope this was useful to some of you, if not all. Thank you.